All right, everybody, thank you. We are going to go ahead and get started with our second presenter for our session number 5, Architectural and Engineering Professional Services. And here with us today from Agile Impact is Rebecca Ralston, and she is going to be talking about digital brand management. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I think it's been a couple of years since I've spoken to Lily and to your group, and it's a pleasure to be back. I want to start off by saying that Agile Impact is a company that helps other companies manage their digital presence. This is digital presence is what we're mainly going to talk about today, but I think of your online presence, your influence, and your risk as things that we can help you with. Today's to teach you more about how you can help yourself, and please do ask questions. It would not be an opening presentation without telling you how big the market is. Everyone's presence is now digital. 4.66 billion people are online in 2020. 62.2 billion visits are to Google. Google is the #1 search engine. Google has 92.18% of the market share. So if you want to find people, Google is where you go. Find information, find anything. If you want people to find you, you need to be on Google. Google processes over 3.5 billion searches per day. And 3.6 billion people use social media in 2020. I think of your digital presence as everything relevant to you as a person and you as a company online. Websites, social media profiles, directory profiles, news stories, and a variety of content on other digital media channels. This makes up all of the places where information about you exists online. Some of it is specifically about you. Some of it might be neutral or unrelated, but it happens to use the same name that you use. And some of it might be negative or in the questionable zone. But you need to be aware of everything that's online about you when someone goes online and searches for you or your brand. Your digital assets. I think of an asset as anything that you control or is published about you that you have some control or need some control over. It's an asset because it takes up real estate in the search engines, the search results. So assets start with your website that you put up about your brand, your company. It's also, we consider assets any story published about you online. So it's a positive asset, of course, if it's a good review or write-up of your company. It can be a negative asset if it's a bad review. Videos and images also count. And there are ways to get your videos published, that's not YouTube. But we think of all the different types of informational websites out there, aggregators. I'm going to use one that's Crunchbase as an example. I don't know if everyone's aware of a digital asset called Crunchbase, but Crunchbase often will rank on the first page of search, and you can enter your information, join Crunchbase, and have a digital profile there. So it gives you another asset or something online that can help define who you are to people looking for more information about you. And then all of us today know about social media profiles. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Pinterest. We tend to focus on those because they get the most traffic and they tend to get the most visibility for us, depending on what your marketing efforts are focused on. Digital influence takes those assets and multiplies them. You have a multiplier effect when your website is also visible and linked back to by digital media assets. Like you get a piece in the local, I'll say My Edmonds News, for an example, and then the piece links back to your website. So there's a multiplier effect there. If the piece also mentions that you have a Facebook or a Twitter account, there's a multiplier. Anytime you post and repost, say you get a piece in the local news and you post it onto your social media, the people that follow you see it. And then the people that, if they like or share it, then those people see it. So you grow a digital ecosystem through all of these publishing points online. And they exist, they continue to exist online. Each of those links between a web page, a content platform, a social media platform, and your followers creates more strength to your digital assets and it's like growing a tree, and you water it. The bigger it grows, the healthier it is, the better for your business. So what we're trying to talk about today is how to manage your digital assets to improve your digital influence and drive action online. And the action that you want in terms of marketing is more clients, better business, better reputation, bigger marketing influence. Make sure I'm still on the page. And then lastly, what we're going to talk about today is your digital media risk. Most of us think about risk as in, the emails that we get. We think about risk as in a malware hitting our website or ransomware. But there's additional risk that you should think of that don't happen on your digital devices, but happen out on the web about you. So I'm going to bring in a few of these that you need to be aware of. A negative search listing online, websites that have been cloned, or there are imposters out there that are trying to steal your reputation, your brand value, and be used by someone else, and specific imposters. So for digital risk mitigation, we'll talk about how to analyze relevant search results for issues, how to audit your digital assets for accuracy and security, how to monitor your digital assets and run all your patches and updates, and how to access threat intelligence for emerging issues. Digital media marketing is about claiming, building, branding, optimizing, and linking all of your digital assets to create a strong branding ecosystem, and it's about maintaining it over time. You might think of marketing as getting the word out about an event that you're going to be doing soon, a show or a seminar like this, but most of us plan our digital media for the long haul. We're thinking in terms of years, not months. So you want to think in terms of your public relations. You want to think of your social media as a long-term investment that will build connections for years. And you want to think of your website in terms of how it ranks in search engine optimization. So long-term and short-term. Architects and engineers typically use digital media to attract, create awareness, and educate people about their firms, to engage, to make more connections and build relationships, and to share. Show what you've done, share great ideas, and pull in leads. This type of presence always starts with a website. What do visitors to websites admire and appreciate the most? Simplicity. They want to be able to find what they came to your website for. They want it to be simple and beautiful. They want it to be clean, and they want it to be fast. It's crucial when you visit a website to not only know where to look, but how to access. For this particular presentation, I chose the Seattle Architecture Foundation as my example, and I'll be pulling in different pieces on that. This is their homepage. So the Seattle Architecture Foundation has a lot of information. It's very beautiful. It loads quickly, but there's a question for audiences. How do you enter this site and find what you are looking for? So they've identified 3 portals for you here on the home page: family and youth programs, tours, public programs, and events. This is most likely because they found that most of their traffic was from people that typed a query in and were looking for information like this. So they decided to make it very easy for them to find what they were looking for, creating specific portals for them to enter. On your website, it should be consistent. The branding should be consistent across all your digital media assets and across all pages. And if you think about major brands like Coca-Cola, like Apple, like Google, one of the key features, you know that brand at a glance. You know that red of Coca-Cola, you know that script, you know exactly from within just a moment of seeing it, who you're looking at. Your website should be just as distinctive. You need a name, you need a logo, you need a favicon. How many people know what a favicon is? I knew you would say that. If I pull this over, the favicon is the tiny character used for the tabs. It's still your brand, your logo, but it's the tiny version that will fit in a small circle. So whenever you design a brand, you also need to design, to go along with it, a favicon that will go on your web pages, so that when it shows up in the search engines, you don't get their basic blah dot, you get your brand. The color is important, the typography is important, the taglines that you use to introduce your company is important, and the images. And they have to be consistent across every single page and consistent across your social media. One of the key things we do when we do our brand audit for a client is we look to make sure of that consistency across everything. And many times we will find that things happened over the years and the branding changed, but nobody went back and cleaned it up and made it consistent across the board. So this is something you might consider if you've been around for more than a year or two. It's amazing how fast this can get out of control. Another thing I want you to think about, and this is very important, is that your website needs to be accessible for everyone from any device. Many people access the web from smartphones and tablets. A lot of people are in the field. If you think about how we spend most of our probably afternoons, evenings on the sofa these days with our iPads, not just our phones, but on our iPads. So the website needs to be accessible from any device. In addition to that, sorry, I got ahead of myself. In addition to that, if you have a lot of graphics on the page, you can end up with poor load times. Or if the site doesn't adjust to the size of the screen, it can frustrate people and cause them to leave your site. The key thing that will cause people to leave is load time. If they're waiting for a site to load, they'll move on. And everyone should be able to access your site, including the disabled. Recently, we've seen suits, companies sued for failing to achieve ADA compliance. And you might think that doesn't apply to me. It's often a frivolous lawsuit, but you still have to defend yourself. Better to be ADA compliant to begin with than to have somebody notify you that you're not ADA compliant and have to go back and fix it and clear that up. So frivolous lawsuits can be a problem. There are 3 resources on this deck. For run each of these, you can go to, put your website in, and it'll give you a report on whether or not your website is accessible and ADA compliant, or what you need to do to make it compliant. Does anyone have a question about that? Because that often comes up. Nope. Cool. Content. When working on websites, graphics are glorious. People love beautiful pictures, but Google is blind. Search engines cannot see any images. So if you design a web page with beautiful images, you have to add words on the back end, the metadata, so that the search engines and other people know what they're looking at. Words are how visitors search for information. Words are what Google crawls, indexes, and how results are ranked. If a website is riddled with typos, that's one issue. Grammatical mistakes, technical jargon, these are things that will impact your quality signal, part of the algorithm that Google uses to judge whether this website should be highly ranked or not. And if it has obvious typos, Google will ding you on a quality signal. Content that is out of date can also send a recency signal to Google. In other words, your site is not recent. I just noticed when going to the Architecture Foundation site that, I'm going to bring up here, can you see this? That they haven't updated their site in over a month. So it's a very strong site, but people notice if things like the Facebook feed or something's broken, or if the information hasn't been updated recently. So you want to make sure that if there's anything dated on the homepage, that it's kept up to date. Don't let things get out of date. Don't let events that have happened not be taken down. It's critical that your website be kept up to date, not just for visitors, but also for the search engines. And last of all, search engines use keyword signals to discover which pages are relevant for a given query. Does everybody know what a keyword is? Excellent. So keywords are how Google serves information. It's what you type into the query box in Google. And I want to show you a little bit about how keywords look, how a website is analyzed for keywords. You need to know what people are searching for, and you need to optimize your pages for what people are searching for, not just for the name of your company. To do this, I'm going to pull up another screen. And I apologize that I can't make it as big as I would like to. I'll try, but it's kind of locked in. This is a tool we use at our company. It's called SEMrush. SEMrush allows me to put any website into its search bar, and then it will do an analysis for me that will tell me the strength of the website, its authority score, and its domain rank, its ability to rank high in the search results. It'll tell me how many words, keywords, it's showing for organically. In other words, Google has fully crawled the site, it's fully indexed the pages, and it's decided that there are 455 keywords that it's relevant for. Backlinks are the referring domains. When I mentioned earlier that you want to create links between your digital media assets, you also want to see if anybody is citing your website and giving you links. Links are valuable because they are part of your ranking score, but they're also part of that network of how people find out about you. They originally come from citations, from thought about how if you have a PhD and you're published, the more people that cite you, the stronger you are as a published author. So backlinks are the links going to your website. And this particular site is not paying for any advertising. You can see their traffic trend over time, exactly how many people visited their website. You can see any features that they're using in the search results. And it will also tell you what keywords it's ranking for and where it's ranking for in Google. So for example, this website, which is the architecture website, Seattle Architecture Foundation, ranks for Seattle architecture in position 3, and that drives 38% of the traffic to the website. Its own name, Seattle Architecture Foundation, ranks in position 1 in Google and drives 30% of its traffic. After that, it drops off pretty dramatically. These are things you want to know and keep an eye on when you're marketing because people are searching for you. So keyword signals are very important. I thought I brought you to the actual site itself to take you through and walk you through this slide. If Google doesn't index your website and rank your digital assets, do you have a presence online? This is the key question. You might think first about, well, we want to rank for an engineering, or we want to rank for architecture, or we want to rank for Seattle, or we want to rank for, right? You're searching for what words are people using when they want to find your business. In this particular case, you want to make sure that if they do hear about you and they search for you, they find a good page on Google. And to define a good page, first you have your website, in this case, the Seattle Architecture Foundation. This website is very well optimized, as you would expect. And tours are clearly something people go to. They've got 6 additional site links showing up in Google. So tours, youth program, staff, downtown tours, exhibits, and membership. So they're taking up quite a bit of the real estate on the Google page. After that, there's another page related to them that Seattle Architecture Foundation, the Center for Architecture, has a page about them. Then they have a Facebook page that's ranking here in the top, and I consider this to be above the fold, which goes to show you that your social media can help you claim your digital presence on the home page in Google. Then there's a Wikipedia article. Wikipedia wins if you can get one. Then there's mentions on other sites. This is TripAdvisor, which is an aggregator site. So you have a mention on aggregator sites. Then there's a mention on Art Network. And then there's a mention in GuideStar. And then there's an ad. In some cases, you want, if you aren't ranking for something outright, and you want to rank in a highly searched for term, like Seattle Architecture Foundation, you might buy an ad, Seattle Architects, in order to get seen where a lot of people are going when they're searching for information online. On the right, this box is called the knowledge box. And the knowledge box is scraped by Google from the website and from Wikipedia. It'll also look for your social media. So Google composes this. But one of the things I was surprised about when I went here is it doesn't look like the Seattle Architecture Foundation has claimed their Google profile, knowledge box, and anybody else could click in here, claim to own the business. You should lock this down. If you get a knowledge box, lock it down for yourself. Make sure Google knows who to contact at your firm. They will pester you and say, are you open this holiday? It's fine, do it. Questions and answers. You also want to manage your reviews. You have the ability to dispute the reviews. They've got great reviews. And you want all of your social media to show up. I noted when I looked at the Architecture Foundation that they have Twitter and Instagram, but they must not be using them as much as they're using their Facebook, because Google is not giving them Google's not giving them listings for their Twitter and their Instagram, nor are they showing on the first page. So if we were working for them, we would help them clean that up and claim those. And here's something that helps anyone that, if you're trying to get found, is notice what other queries people are typing in that are related to this. Clearly here, they're thinking about tours, people going and looking for other things to do. But one of your goals in terms of digital presence online is when people do know your name and they go to Google and look for you, you own this page. This shows a very strong digital brand presence. And this is created by tying your assets together. Your website, your Facebook. You might have a page on your website for news, and you might point out the other places that are also mentioning you. So you're giving Google signals that, yes, check out this mention, check out this mention, check out more information about us on these other pages. Those live links will help Google to think better about your brand. Another thing to cultivate is public relations. I think of public relations as gold. If you get a mention, even in your local your local paper, and in mine, that's the My Edmonds News. And for, I can't generally talk about clients, but I can talk about my work as a board member for the Edmonds Arts Festival Foundation. And anything that we do, I send out a press release to my local Edmonds News, and I get coverage for it. So it helps get a mention for the foundation. But I also make sure I include a link, not to the home page, but to the page that's related to the press piece that I just published, because I want to increase the keyword recognition, and I want to increase the strength of that web page so that it gets found for more keyword searches. So I don't just send out a press release that says link to my, and that links to my homepage on my website. I send a press release that links to the exact page, deeper pages on the website that I want Google to crawl, and I want to gain strength in the search results. So that's one key. If you're cultivating through press releases information, you can also put videos up on YouTube. If you're walking through a project, talking about something, have some expertise, same thing with images. These are all things that can live out on the web and link back to your website, and will create strength, digital presence for you. A good article in a newspaper or magazine needs to mention your brand in the headline. The meta description, which is the paragraph that Google shows about you, go up here. A meta description would be this. You can type it, or you can let Google pick it up randomly. Can everybody see what I'm pointing at? So if you leave that space blank on your website, Google will fill it in for you. Don't do that. Choose what you want to be said about you in the Google search results. So fill in the meta descriptions on your website. If you use WordPress, or if you're creating the website yourself, there's a very simple box. You can almost always on WordPress go and click. It's a click box, and you just type in the description you want of that page. Also, if the name of your company brand is mentioned in the first paragraph of the article or press release, that helps. You don't want to stuff a piece with your name, but the headline, the meta description, and the first paragraph tends to be what will help you to rank well in search. A Wikipedia article is gold. However, if you're not very notable, it's hard to get one. Don't try to go to Wikipedia and create one for yourself without notability. It won't work. Lots of people ask. Aggregator sites like GuideStar, Crunchbase, very useful for recognition. People will try to find more information about you than what you say about yourself. So having other places where there's information about you, you do want to sign up, add that information in the world. You also want to keep track of it so it doesn't go out of date. Information sites must be reviewed on a regular basis to make sure the content is accurate and current, because other people can edit the information besides you, and you will be not pleased by what some of them do to you. So keep an eye on any mention of yourself online. And if it's editable, or you can reach out to the editor and request a correction, do that. Also make sure that you're doing what you can to promote the leadership of your company, because most of the time, they're not looking up the company first, they're looking up you first. So you should think about that. You hand out business cards, you shake hands, you're on a Zoom meeting, you look somebody up. You want to make sure that if you're the leadership of your company, that your presence online is very strong. So let's talk about social media. How do architects use social media? Again, 3.6 billion people use social. A simple message can be liked, shared, tweeted, and shared again. When it resonates and it is shared, thousands of people all over the world can see that same message in a day. In that day, it tends to be a thing where you build over time. Social media is not a one and done, because like tweets, I used to think of tweets as like the tweets go by and then there's this accumulation of where the birds left, what the birds left behind. And it can be a mess. So depending on what happens on social, it's a positive for you, or it can be a mess that has to be cleaned up. So you want to think about how to manage your messaging on social media and how not to create a mess that you'll have to clean up. Social media can also be used to promote dialogue among your peers. Something architects value, something that everyone in business values, is the dialogue. It's a platform for showcasing images and visual inspiration. Pinterest and Instagram have taken off for this. A lot of visual artists scan it. You'll sit and just look to see the images and see if it sparks any ideas in you, and you might reach out. These platforms are all well suited for visual, technical, and intellectual sharing. I also put in for engineering companies how an engineering company uses social media, because it tends not to be as visual. Social media is easy to see the results of your actions. This applies to anyone, architects or engineers, but it's also very easy to spend a lot of time and effort posting and sharing, and you have to know what your goals are. Be clear about them. Typical goals for engineers and others are to build awareness of your company. Again, it'd be nice if you had a lot of followers, but following, it can be a vanity metric. You want to build the right kind of awareness of your company. One of the things I like is for that to also rank in the search results. You want to be able to build one-on-one relationships with future customers, which means you want to be commenting and showing up in places where the people that you want to talk to are showing up. And you want to be able to pull in sales-ready leads. SRLs. Don't try to do all of this at once if you've never done social media. Do start by picking one that works for you and using it consciously. Set a goal and think about what you're actually trying to do, and then build upon that. I picked LinkedIn because LinkedIn leverages your connections that you already have. So unlike Twitter, where you're posting stuff and trying to catch somebody's eye, LinkedIn, you start from a base of who are you connected to, who do you know, and work from there. So LinkedIn marketing. Different ways to use it from functional standpoint. 1 is connecting, 2 is posting, 3 is learning about potential customers. And I've included this information here in the long form, a lot of text on the screen, but I know that you'll take this away in the hard copy and be able to use it. So first you have to decide who is your target customer. If you're a sub, you're looking for the primes, you're looking for the people, and you're looking for those connections. If you're looking based on a role, you're looking based on industry, you're looking based on a company side, you're looking based on geography. There are people that you will want to follow. That's usually the first thing. You look in your connections and see, oh, I went to school with this person, maybe they can introduce me to that person, and that will get you a LinkedIn connection. It's better to have warm LinkedIn connections than the cold ones. I'm sure you all get cold LinkedIn requests. Somebody you don't know that's from India that wants to sell you remote support services. I get at least 5 of those that want to help me manage my marketing. Invite the person to connect with you. This could be LinkedIn, it could be a phone call, or it could be in person. You could ask to meet them for coffee if we weren't in the COVID age. You can also share useful information with people. I tend to post content about what's typically happening in the search engine marketing area and in the digital media risk area. And I find people reach back that way. Non-mechanical parts of the process, it requires empathy. If you don't feel like connecting with other people online, it's not going to be very helpful or authentic. So the thing about running a social media campaign is you have to actually want to run a social media campaign. You have to actually want to be present and dedicate at least an hour a week to this. Make it a schedule, say every Friday morning, I am going to think of something that I'm going to post on LinkedIn, and I'm going to think of 3 people I want to connect to in my industry. Set yourself a goal and work the goal every week and think of it as a long-term thing to do. And when people reach back and congratulate you or reach back to you, be prompt in responding. Posting, leadership and company updates. If you're posting on behalf of your company or as leadership, make sure you don't blab. Blabbing is what you do when you can't think of anything valuable to say. Come see us at the booth, we just hired a new employee, we just opened a new office. That's making noise, but it doesn't actually make a connection. It just says, hi, I'm alive. Try to come up with stuff that provides value so that people will want to say, ha, that's something I want to know about, more about, and they will reach out to you. Keep your posts short and sweet, 1 sentence, maybe 2. Limit the number of times that you post to once a week at most. And if you have nothing to say, don't post. Also understand the hashtags and mentions for your world. So I'm sure everyone's followed politics, but there are certain hashtags that go out there. One thing that's important to know is something that means one thing in your world may not mean the same thing in other worlds. So know what it means before you post. Don't come up with a hashtag that will mean something else out in the broad, always there, forever internet. And then the third thing you can do, and I have to admit, I often start, this one is my first one, is that I research my clients. I do a lot of online research through their social media to figure out more about them, learn more about the business, read through their profiles, what they're good about, what they care about, how they view themselves. So you want to provide that information for other people so they want to connect with you, but you should also learn from what they're telling you about them. And then in LinkedIn, joining groups where there are conversations about particular topics is very useful. You can learn a lot without having to say a lot to start with, and you can figure out where your voice makes sense in the group. This takes a lot more time, but I think it's actually the most valuable work that you can do in social media, because you're joining a group and building community on topics that you all enjoy. The energy is much better than just trying to think about how to bang out something that social media I gotta post this week. So things to keep in mind in groups: you need to stay on topic, you need to listen for a long time before you speak up, and you need to add value to the conversation. When you're going to be running a social media campaign, a marketing campaign, one of the things that's very important is to have some goals and then to track and see if you're accomplishing your goals. Building awareness of your company is one key goal. How do you tell if you're accomplishing that? First thing is engagement rates. If you have a website, you can track where people are coming to your website and if they're clicking through on your website and where they're spending time on the pages. Watching your Google Analytics lets you know what information people find interesting on your site and what they're sharing. You can tell that by backlinks. If they're sharing information, sharing the web page on your website with someone else, then that link is visible. They usually put it on their site. You can see links from social media. You can see links from other website coming to your web pages. Click-through rates, 2% is not very engaged. Above 6%, they're very engaged. This is true for social media and for websites. A bounce rate on your website analytics means that people are hitting your page and they're leaving it very quickly. It means they got there, they said, this isn't what I want, and they bounced off the page, just what it sounds like. If you have a very high bounce rate, you need to review to make sure that you're providing information your audience is looking for and figure out why they're bouncing off the page. Follower counts matter because the more people that follow you, the more people that you can reach. But it's not a vanity metric. It's the difference between the number of people you have an actual face-to-face talking relationship with and the number of people that you see in a crowd, right? The crowd isn't going to bring you new business necessarily. So you don't want to just accumulate a crowd. You want to accumulate people who are interested in what you're doing or in services that you provide. Building one-on-one relationships with the future, you want connection rates. Track what fraction of the people you reach out to actually end up connecting with you. So if you're using LinkedIn, for example, and you make it a goal of reaching out to 3 people a week, keep track every week that you did that and how many people reached back and connected with you. And if you manage to have a conversation beyond the, yes, accept the invitation. If you're hitting somewhere between the 10 to 35% rate, you're doing great. And it does take time to get better at this. And then in terms of sales-ready leads, track sales. If you get a sale, you need to know how they met you. Was it somebody you met at a conference? Was it somebody you met online? Where did they hear about you? You can ask this question and keep a log of it. You want to keep track of how long it takes in your business to turn into for an introduction to turn into a sales ready lead. In my business, it's about 9 months. And now we'll move on to digital risk mitigation. Digital risk mitigation for me is becoming a bigger and bigger part of our business. We help people clean up their websites and make sure that they rank well in search. We help them make sure that all their social media is doing well. We might help them come up with a content marketing plan and write and post content on a regular basis if they don't have time to do it internally. But the thing that will stop you cold is if something goes wrong with your that will impact your reputation or your presence in a negative way. So first thing we do for our clients is we analyze the relevant search results for issues. And when we're talking about looking at the search results, I showed you what it looked like. You go to Google, Seattle architectural firm, you look at the first page, you can say, well, they have nothing bad about them on the first page. That's excellent. Typically, we'll go down 10 pages. Look for every mention that happens online about the company in order to find what people are saying about them online. So that will be one thing. But we don't just check them for mentions. We also analyze them for accuracy. We also analyze them for security. And then we monitor and run all the patches and updates. I'm going to walk you through more of this versus static. Search listings. You'll quickly recognize if there's incorrect information about you online or if there's a negative review or a negative news article about you online. That's a bottom line issue. If somebody looks for you or your company and there's a negative on the homepage of search, it will impact your bottom line. The next thing is you want to make sure that all the listings are you and they are accurate. And I have some examples of how this can go wrong these days. And then digital imposters in social media. Problems in search, no presence, out of date information, or negative presence. Your goal is to create a strong presence. And if you do that, then you'll have your website, you'll have your social media, and you'll have your digital media on informational pages or your press release on news or other sites, and your search results will look great. But in auditing your digital assets, I thought I'd walk you through an example. Most of you are pretty small, I assume, could be wrong. We deal with companies from one-man shop all the way up to multinationals. A large cancer treatment center recently engaged us to audit their digital presence across the web. They've been around for a while. They're pretty much concentrated in the New York area, but over time, more than one website, more than one digital media asset had been created, and they wanted to know exactly what's out there about us online. We found 373 relevant URLs that were all had their brand mentioned on the URL as a website, as something about them, for them. So our objective was to find, analyze, and make recommendations so that they could bring it up to corporate standards and harmonize or sunset assets that could not achieve compliance with their brand standards. Of the 373, 109 of them were just dead, did not resolve, redirected to another site, broken. We also found login pages that have been set up to log into other resources like Tableau, Huron Research. We found external resources that were data files, things shared about the company or research the company had done, and then 92 sites that just needed to be taken down. We also found 14 different content management systems, 18 different content delivery networks, 6 different web applications, 37 different analytics systems, 45 different WordPress plugins, and 161 different JavaScript libraries. The cost of all of this stuff, we estimated for this particular company to be $190,000 annually in just stuff that different departments, different teams had created and nobody was keeping track of over time. We also found that they were failing compliance out of these sites. The medical company had to bring all of them up to compliance, harmonize them, or sunset them. We also found a lot of technical errors. We looked at their websites for cohesive management for errors on the sites, things that make it confusing for the user, pages that don't resolve, broken menus, missing content. On these external facing websites, we found 1,200 errors on the website itself. I don't know if you've experienced 401s. You go to a page and it just doesn't resolve. It says 401 page not found. These are the types of things that get in the way of your customer experience, visitor experience on your websites. It's not a hack. It's nothing that anyone else has done to you. It's stuff you've done to yourself that you need to fix. And then there's the security and maintenance. Every single day, I get notices about you need to update Google, there's a patch, you need to update your Apple email, there's a patch, you need to update your operating system, there's a patch. All of these things are important to pay attention to individually and in a company because frankly, the Chinese are watching all of the CISA notices on vulnerabilities and patches and looking for people who don't update. And then they're exploiting the vulnerabilities. So it's very important that you maintain your website, maintain your digital hardware and software in your company and for yourself. Let's talk about other things that people do to you versus the stuff you do to yourself. Impersonating or phishing scams and spoofers. Websites can be cloned, meaning somebody can literally take your website, clone it, and put it out there with malware on it or for some other scam for people to come to what they thought was your site, and instead they get sucked into a scam. So you need to be watching for clones of your website, clones of your brand, because people are leveraging a trusted relationship in order to gain that trust. So we found copycat websites, copycat mobile sites, exploited ads. The other one is social media. People are using social media because once you form a connection, there's a degree of trust in that connection. And so if you create any social media profiles out there, you need to maintain them. You need to make sure nobody else is trying to copy you or to use your name or your image on social to earn trust and scam someone. And then some of the things these scams are used for are job scams. They'll put up a website, and if it's not set up for malware, it's set up in some way to imply that this person could offer you a job and get you to fill out information that they can then use and steal from you. I have a good example of that one. A client of ours in New York, we were doing our normal work for them and we found a clone. This is the logo. I've removed the name of the company. We found a clone of their site called Stental Ventures, stental.com. It's taken down now. But they literally cloned the entire website, put Stental in place of everywhere that the company's name had been, and they were using it to run a job scam in Australia to trick young college students into making job applications, but providing social security numbers and bank account numbers to them. Somehow they persuaded them that they needed to provide this information in order to get the job. They did a fairly thorough job. They set up a stental.com, a Stental Facebook, a Stental Twitter, and a Stental LinkedIn. And they stole pictures of executives off various websites, various other areas, not off the original client site. One was off LinkedIn, one was off Zurich.co, one was off WFG Women, and one was off, another one off of LinkedIn, and plugged that in as the executives. So it's easier to steal a real image than it is to make one up, although deep fakes are making this much harder now. So this one we reported and got everything taken down. But if you're not monitoring for these things, you wouldn't know that the scam was being done with your name. Resources for this, threat intelligence resources. I subscribe to CISA.gov. You might have seen it in the news recently. Here's the address. You can sign up for daily emails, notices, vulnerability summaries, what's going on in the world. They'll send you an update and tell you Google released updates for Chrome. You can have it sent to everybody, which reminds you to go to Google About and run your latest, I don't know if you know how to do this, go up to, you're in Google, go to Chrome, go About, and it'll go to the page and it will check for your latest version of updates for Google. Your Apple devices will also do that. CISA will send you notices and tell you about any one of them that needs to be done. They'll also tell you what the latest scans are. CISA's been in the news because the head of CISA was recently fired by our president for speaking truth to power. But this is the website for CISA. And rumor versus reality, holiday safety online, the risk of ransomware, and you can sign up for any variety of daily alerts that will come to you. I highly recommend that you subscribe to the information for cybersecurity and get all of the alerts for both for yourself and for your company. It's amazing how many people are trying to scam or steal or intellectual property steal your money, steal your reputation. And if you're running a business, it doesn't take that much time, but not paying attention to it can cost you dearly. That is my presentation. Do you have any questions?
I have a comment, Rebecca.
Yes.
My name's Marnie. I work with PTech, so I help clients with their government contracting. And one of the things I do for my clients is I kind of do a quick look over of their website, but the big thing I look at is the consistency between their online profiles. So beyond just brand, most of the time it's just words, but clients have it's a struggle when you go to sam.gov and enter your profile information, and then you go to the state registration site and enter your information.
Yes.
Making sure that information is as consistent as everything else. And it's just important to think with these government contractors, everywhere is your presence and should reflect what you want it to say about you.
Yes. And I've done that myself. I'm on SAM and I'm on the various lists, and you have to go back and make sure that the information is current. I think I've been in business 11 years. So there are things that accumulate over time. So definitely.
Rebecca, I have a follow-up question for a small business who is limited on funding. Obviously, we don't have that much funds to spread it around. And if we wanted to start establishing a digital presence, what would you recommend that companies to start out, whether it's social media or a website?
The very first thing is always the website. Website is foundational. I think of it as the center hub in a spoke. So you need the website because it anchors everything else, and your social media will link back to your website and build that presence. In some cases, I know artists, again, Foundation Artist Association, the artist might only have an Instagram, and the Instagram might lead to a Instagram profile page, and that has some basic information, and they manage to do sales through there. But most of the time, and I can say this from experience this year with COVID shut down, the festivals, all of our festivals, and so artists in particular are hurting. And we've done a drive to help them set up basic websites on Squarespace or on Wix, so it doesn't cost them very much, right? And they can also create a small shop. Again, you can do a Shopify, you can do an Etsy, you can do something like that. But for yourself, you want the core thing to be a website, even if it's a very simple website using Wix or Squarespace or WordPress. WordPress is much more flexible. I prefer WordPress. And the reason I prefer WordPress is that you can search engine optimize it properly. The other sites, because they're trying to make it so easy for you to set them up, they've basically taken out all the things that you would have to think harder about to set up. So, you know, if you think of something as I just want a digital business card out there online, you could choose something very simple. If you wanted to set up an online flyer, thinking of your website as that, I would go to a basic WordPress site and set it up yourself. You can engage us. We can help build websites. We've done that before working with PTAC. And then set up each of the social media profiles. The social media profiles don't cost money. They just cost time.
Rebecca, I got to tell you, that was a lot of information. That was, thank you. That was really great. I mean, at some point I'm like, wow, we got to watch out for that. Oh, what? Okay, now we got to watch out for that. But great information about what to look for.
I'm glad it was helpful. One of the best tools that I find is setting up your Google Analytics on your website, because it will tell you if something's going wrong. So again, set up a website, set up your analytics, look at your analytics, but also subscribing to, you know, my morning reads these days to the Washington Post, because I have a cybersecurity email that drops in my box, anything that's happening, the CISA emails that drop in my box, just keeping up with what's going on in the world.
Okay.
Rebecca,
Yes.
earlier you mentioned that one of your clients, they have their website cloned. In that case, who do you report to if you find something like that?
We reported it to GoDaddy. We did a who is to find out who set up the website, because you can actually literally take like stencil.com when it was up, can drop it into this. GoDaddy runs a who is site. So literally if you type into Google who is, you drop it in, it'll give you all the information about where the site is hosted, who the webmaster is, and you can file a claim with GoDaddy that says this site is violating the copyright of my site, and request that it taken down. If you find that they're running a scam, FBI would be the next step.
Okay.
The clones and imposters we have on file for most of our clients, their personal information like driver's licenses, so that we can go onto Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and take down imposters. Because I have one client that's relatively famous, and he has 3 new imposters every week. So it's whack-a-mole. Probably won't happen to you, but you'd be surprised. We run reverse image checks for all our clients these days. to find their image anywhere online and make sure it's actually related to them. Somebody hasn't taken your face, for example, put another name under it and is it somewhere.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from our participants for Rebecca? You've got somebody online with us right now that is an expert in this area, so feel free to ask your questions.
And I tried to make it digestible. I know this information so well that even when I think it's simple, it's a lot. One of the key things that I want to remind you is that people come to your website looking for something they want to know. They're not looking to find out more about you, right? To me, when you're setting up your own website, the key is design it for your audience, not for yourself. Always remember that. Remember that people want to know something. That's why they were searching. Or they want to go somewhere, like touring the great buildings in Seattle. Or they want to do something, or they want to buy something. You have to answer those questions when you set up your website. Don't waste their time talking about you. You can put that on a deeper page. Encounter should be answering the questions that people went on to solve. So about your company that people are looking for? That's the key question you want to ask yourself. Why are people looking for me? It's one of the key things we do for our clients. You know, we might have 50 clients, but we also have everything set up so that the alerts go to our webmaster and our webmaster can respond to it. Whereas, you know, in your office, you might not be thinking about it, right? And you wouldn't, and if something happens, you also might not know what to do about it because you don't know your webmaster, you don't know who set it up. It was set up a long time ago by somebody else. You know, there are reasons you outsource some of this, and it's not that expensive to have someone that just keeps track of your site, make sure all the patches are run on it. These days, WordPress, all of the different sites have regular patches and vulnerability updates. And if you're not the one running your website, you may not be the one running your updates, or nobody's running your updates.
Well, thank you very much for that very insightful and a lot of information in your presentation, Rebecca. And I look forward to you know, our firms working with you and us working with you in the future. So thankful for all of you being here with us today. And we've got two more presenters that are here. And our first presenter is showing up as Wanjiku Kahacho, but I believe the person is Cynthia from the African Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, I go by Wanjiku. Cynthia is my first name. Nice to meet you.
Okay, nice to meet you. Well, welcome. Do you have a presentation for us, or you're just going to be speaking to us?
I do have a presentation.
Okay, great.
There we go. So like I said, my name is Wanjiku Kahacho. I'm with the African Chamber of the Pacific Northwest. Who is African Chamber of Pacific Northwest? African Chamber of Commerce was created 22 years ago. We promote business between Africa and America and trade, and we will also work with other African community small businesses here to help them through small business development. How do we promote business between here and Africa? We provide one-on-one assistance to business, assist business to connect with right resources, work with embassies in Washington, D.C., work with the Chamber of Commerce in Africa to identify the sectors that are ripe for America companies to invest in, then connecting companies with people from those countries they wish to do business with. We organize forums, breakfasts, and luncheons with speakers who are knowledgeable with doing business in Africa. That includes consul general ambassadors, ministers, or business delegations from Africa. This year, we were planning to host the 22nd annual business day, but everything with technology made things a little bit more challenging than usual, but we usually have an annual business day forum. Partnership to support small businesses. Partnership with organizations to provide workshops, outreach, information for training and internship, peer apprenticeship, and apprenticeship for port-related industries, enrollment assistance into internships, peer apprenticeship, and apprenticeship port-related industries, partnering with consulting firms to help small business application for benefits and services, webinar sessions to provide the requirements and training in the properly understand the registration process, tax and patent certification with OMWBE. Right now, what we are really doing with small business during this COVID time is we have a program that we have gotten technical assistance grants, service contracts where we can help small business apply for the grants that are coming out, give them resources, help them with PPP loan forgiveness. And so we do that through webinars that we are hosting this Saturday. We actually have one to help childcare businesses and anybody looking to learn more about PPP loan forgiveness.
Oh, sorry.
So success stories during the first 22 years, these are our main accomplishments, achievements that we like to talk about. We helped with the World Trade Organization when they came to Seattle in November 1999. We helped facilitate the visit of Nelson Mandela to come here in October of 1999. And we helped with the AGOA, with helping that get passed with Africa. We were among over 2,000 delegates who were in Washington, D.C. in 2000, where we devised a national policy plan of action for U.S. and African relations in the 21st century. And yes, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, any questions for our partner chamber at the African Chamber? From Juku.
Hi, Wanjuku.
Hello.
You mentioned earlier that you provide technical assistance to small businesses. Can you go into more details on that?
Yes, so since the beginning of COVID, we've been wanting to bring resources and informations to African small businesses because, the information, what we find is the information is there, but people don't really know how to access it and to get to it. So we have done it through webinars. Like I said, we have posted it through social media, and we help people apply for the grants when they become available. We'll help you through that process and just assist you in that aspect. And if you have any questions, and right now, like I said, on Saturday, we do have the webinar that we're putting on together. This one, it says childcare businesses, but it's any businesses, because we will be talking about things like PPP loan forgiveness. And a lot of people right now are curious about the process of applying for that and how to go about that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Wanjuku over at African Chamber? Okay, seeing that we don't have any more questions, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate the information that you brought to share with our group. And thank you again for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, I appreciate it as well.
All righty, well, our next technical service assistance provider support service is Tyra Anderson.
Hi, yeah, my name is Tara. I'm with MRSC Rosters. Some of you may be familiar with this program. Here's my contact info and the website. You can jot that down, but I'm happy to share out the slides as well later if folks would like to have these. Let me move this over. So what I'm gonna go over is just a brief synopsis of what the MRSC Rosters service actually is for those of you who aren't familiar, and then I'll talk about how public agencies use the rosters to connect with businesses, and then I'll show you how you can sign up as a business if you're interested in getting signed up, and hopefully we have some time for Q&A at the end. So MRSC Rosters is a membership roster service. What we do is host individual public works consultant and vendor rosters for local governments all across the state. Essentially, these local governments will use our service to access their roster and search for pre-approved businesses to contact with bidding opportunities. It is specific to the roster contracting process. So these opportunities that come through the rosters program aren't generally advertised, which is why it's important to be signed up if you're interested in being considered. There are over 600 different public agencies across the state who use the service. So we have cities and counties, school districts, fire districts who are all using this service to locate businesses to then contact with RFPs and RFQs. We have about 20 to 30 new agencies joining every year, so the opportunities do grow every year. And there are thousands of searches run in the database every month to seek businesses. So we have members like Pierce County, Bellingham School District, the City of Renton, and a whole lot of other folks who use this to find businesses like yours. Again, this is specific to roster contracting. So for A&E type work, that's going to be small to medium-sized contracts that would be coming through. Larger contracts would generally go through a full bid process. So real quickly, I'll just show you how the agencies actually use this, so you have a sense of what it looks like on their end. Essentially, they'll log into their account and then select a roster type to search by, and you can see what this looks like for them. Once they select the roster type, they then can filter by a service category. All of the service categories are the same categories that you as a business would select in your application. And then once they search for those businesses, they're going to end up with a list of pre-approved businesses that they can then contact. Prior to contacting architects, engineers, and other consultants, the agencies are going to review applications. Specifically, they'll check the statement of qualifications document, which is required for consultants to include in their application. Once they've determined who they're contacting, they'll contact you directly, and that bidding process then happens between the businesses and the agency. So those communications are not coming from MRSC rosters. Just to be aware of that is important. So we'll transition into talking about how you can get signed up if you're interested, if you're not already signed up. Essentially, it's very simple. Just go to the website, mrscrosters.org. You'll want to click on the business tab toward the top of the page, which will take you to a form to create an account. Once you create an account, you'll be emailed a link to your application. You'll fill out that application and submit it for review. We review new applications every 2 to 3 business days, so the turnaround is pretty quick. If you're on a deadline and you know that there's a public agency you're trying to work with that needs you to be on by a certain time, just let us know. We can expedite application review if we know that we need to do that for you. And once you're active in the system, you'll then be actively listed with the agencies you selected to be listed with, which means that you'll be able to receive the notifications from those agencies when they have a need for the service you provide. Just to go into a little bit more detail, when you're selecting your public agencies to be listed with, you can select up to 9 different agencies to be listed with for free. There's a small $10 administrative fee applied if you decide to be selected with 10 or more public agencies. But if that's a burden to your business, please let us know, because our intention is not to create barriers. Really, our intention is to make it easier for businesses to participate in the roster contracting process. So just keep that in mind as well. There is an enhanced membership option, which generally is something that larger businesses may use. It allows you to be listed statewide, so you can, with one click, be listed with all of our participating agencies. That can cost as little as $75 a year, but it does range depending on your business type and business size. There's a fee chart on the website, which you can check out. And that's really all I wanted to cover today. It's pretty simple stuff, but in synopsis, it's really important to be listed with MRSC rosters if you want to be considered for small to medium-sized consulting type projects. So just keep that in mind. And I think we should have a few minutes for questions. So I'm happy to take any questions that folks might have.
Anybody, any questions, any comments? for, can you say your name again? Because I know it's not Tyra.
It's Tara.
Tara, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any
Mhm.
comments, any questions for Tara? MRSC rosters? Okay, so I've got a question if nobody else has a question. Earlier in your presentation, you said that you qualify, or you used a word, the people that sign up?
Yeah, so our agencies view businesses on this roster list as pre-qualified, because what we do is we check to make sure that businesses meet minimum requirements. So what we're going to do is check with the Department of Revenue to make sure that's good to go. For our small works type businesses, we're checking with L&I to make sure that business is not debarred and they have an active contractor's license if applicable. So it's really simple stuff, but that does signal to the agency that you've gone through a very basic initial vetting process, which just adds to their assurance and ability to have our service manage their roster, because part of that is it lifts the administrative burden from the public agency, which is why public agencies use our service. So, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I was just really curious about what the pre-qualification process was.
There are, I mean, a lot of it too is there are required fields in the application. So there is a page on the website that goes over eligibility requirements. And I would suggest if you, checking that out. But yeah, in the application, there are required fields like insurance and that kind of thing that would be necessary to provide before you can become approved in the system.
Okay. Anybody, any other questions? Do you actually, Tara, do you actually have metrics, I guess, for the members that you've had like in the past year, maybe like 2018 or 2019, like we have, 1,000 members, and of our 1,000 members, the contracting amount through, by utilizing the MRSC rosters was like, at what, 10 billion or 5 billion or whatever it is. Do you guys have that metrics?
We don't have metrics as far as the amount of contracts per dollar, just because, like I mentioned earlier, the contracting process and bidding process all happens through the agency side. They're not actually posting that information in our system. So what the data that we have is all centered around number of searches run. We also do reporting around top service categories that are searched in the database, which we share out with our business members in our monthly e-newsletter. So that's interesting to see, because you can definitely see different trends depending on what's going on in the state, and also by season it can change. So that's interesting information that I didn't really have time to go into that in this presentation, but if folks are interested in seeing some of that search data, reach out to me and I can share it with you.
Is there a possibility that our folks would be able to try the services for like 6 months to see if they're really interested in becoming a full-fledged member of MRSC roster? Is that a possibility? Like, or, 3 months or whatever, do you offer anything like that?
I mean, we don't have like an automated system right now that would trigger like a free sort of trial phase, but I'm happy to accommodate that. I've definitely worked one-on-one with businesses who, they're interested in checking things out, but they don't want to maybe spend the money up front without a guarantee that they might see a lead come through. So I am happy to work with folks if they're interested in signing up and wanting to sort of have a trial phase. I can manually make that happen. Alternatively, I can, refund a membership fee that might have been paid if folks are just not seeing a return on investment.
Okay, so everybody, you've heard what Tara has to say about that. I think we've asked the pertinent questions, on behalf of our participants. If there is any interest, you can go ahead and join, pay the fee. If you don't see a return on your investment, contact Tara and have her, just say, hey, this isn't working for me, because there's a whole host of areas that you can go and find this information, right? We all know that public agencies post it and you can go, but if this offers you a faster way to take a look at this, This might be something that you would consider. There's Builders Exchange. I mean, there's a whole host of these things that are out there, but I think that it's worth, it's kind of worth taking it out for a drive to see if it fits your bucket and if this is something that you want to do. And, she's made the offer, so go ahead and take a look at that. The fees, I see some questions coming up, like what are the fees? The fees are, according to what Tara has told us, it starts at $10, but then and that gives you access to 10 agencies. If you want more, it can be 75, that's the minimum, and then it can go up from there. So it just depends on the size of your business. And so if you're interested, go to the website and take a look at that, because I think that it's kind of on a sliding scale, how big you are, what you're going to be doing. So any other questions for Tara? Okay. Tara, if you can go ahead and stop sharing your screen so we can get all of our participants back on screen. Thank you so much for being here with us. It was great to learn about your MRSC rosters. We'll take a look at that and see if that's something that we can talk to our clients about, at least trying that out and contacting you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much.
One other question I had before that point was, it would be good to hear from folks about, especially being a very small firm, and a lot of times getting the request for being exclusive, and the effects that can have on a long-term teaming relationship. I don't know, that would be, it kind of fit in within today, but I would be curious to hear other folks' experiences with that.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be today either.
Yeah, Casey, I can share my because I have been sub and prime for all my business career. For the type of work that you and I do, is, especially for a small business startup, is many of the firms, they also realize that you cannot be exclusive. We do not know, even if they win the job, our part of the job is probably 2 to 5%. At the most, the budget. And for that budget, it cannot be exclusive to somebody. If 5 firms are competing, they have 20% chance. For 20% chance, for 2%, 3% of the budget, should we be exclusive? No. So first answer is no. But if it is a very strategic job, it's a big job that it will keep you busy for 2 years or 3 years, and there is a lot of confidential information that the pursuit team needs to share within the team. In that case, if it is very strategic, that makes sense to be exclusive. But otherwise, it does not make sense for a small business or to be exclusive. And most of the primes, they understand it, they don't even ask for it. Some people ask for it. If I tell them that I explain them, everybody understands it.
The other thing you have to consider with exclusivity is if it falls into the negative control category, it could make you no longer a small business because of the negative control that exclusivity causes on your business. So something to consider if you are being asked to do that is to look into how that affects you.
Marnie, can you explain? I did not get it. Can you explain that how you can be negatively? I have no idea about that.
Yeah, you're basically, if you assign exclusivity, which limits your ability to go out and get other work, your client is controlling your business, which means that the control of your business is no longer yours, and you no longer count as a small business and could be considered affiliated or not have control. So it can negatively affect your certifications, your status, the reason they're using a small business as a subcontractor. So you want to consider that as well.
So I think that's a very good point. And what is the point, so what should we tell that? How should we present that to our primes who ask for exclusivity? Because they do ask, I think Casey has a good point. So I never thought about that way, that it will become the control will be changed or anything.
I think you got to take a look at, are they asking you to just be exclusive in the bid process, just work with us on this? If we win it, you will be part of the team. Because a lot of times on a bigger project for professional services, they don't want you sharing the same thing with everybody else, because maybe they've developed something, they've sat down, they've talked to you, how they're going to go about executing, which maybe this team over here doesn't know. So I can understand when they ask for you to just bid with them and be exclusive bidding with them. But if they're saying, we want you to just work with us for, just the next 2 to 3 years, Marnie is absolutely correct, because it calls into question control of the company and commercially useful function. Because part of that CUF review is, are you actually in charge of your company?
Yeah, actually, just to clarification, nobody asked me for that yet, it is for a specific project that if they win it, you will be the exclusive, and that is sometime, for the information sharing and everything. And here is, Casey, you may know already that we have a firewall. Whatever we discuss, even if we are on 5 teams or 6 teams for the same job, whatever information is shared between the prime and the sub, it remains firewall. It does not go like, we don't share information between the primes, never ever, So that's they have to have that high confidence in us for us to accept that way. And that is something that as a sub, as a small business, we need to maintain that trustworthiness, that we are not going to share cross information, because everyone has a different strategy.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that you can do is you can also, like if it's in the planning stages, or, like, okay, we're creating this, we want you to kind of talk us through this, for your portion of the work, this is how we see it happening. How do you see it happening? I know that some people have asked for subs to sign a non-disclosure agreement because they're trying to get shortlisted. And I understand why, because they are approaching it a specific way. I mean, Tamika, she's been on large projects where, it's like, okay, we're working and this is how we're going to attack it. So Tamika, can you share with us your perspective from being with large primes that maybe have asked for that NDA agreements?
Yes, hi everyone. Most of the time when you do have the non-disclosure, it is specific to that project, potentially, definitely on the A&E side, to the design. And at the same time, they don't want you to shop around and be on multiple teams. For example, I worked for 2 very large prime contractors, and in the actual bidding phase, we would try to put together teams, and we would have everyone sign an NDA, because once you always have to think about it, you take your time to do the marketing and estimating and go after. If you don't get that project, that's money that you don't recoup. So it's the same with a large prime. And for you to not sign the non-disclosure, if you are with, say, for example, Turner, Skanska, and then Mortensen, if Skanska doesn't get it, but you didn't sign an NDA and you're working with the other 2, then guess what? That's good for you, but it could be bad for Skanska, because you may have shared some information as you have met with the other primes. And again, signing the NDA also lets the prime know that you're serious, that again, the information you are bringing to the table is your best, and that you are not trying to shop around just to make sure you get on the project. So again, it's a good thing to have and to do, a practice in general. Don't look at it as negative, because in the long run, it helps everyone. That's one of the main reasons. And also think about it this way, that still builds your relationship with that prime. And at the same time, you know how their process works. So when they get ready to go after another project, you know the lead time, you know all the information they're asking for. Again, you're probably more prepared. So.
Thank you.
Thank you for the insight, Tamika. That's appreciated. Anything else? Any other questions? Any comments?
No, thanks for everyone's time.
Thank you. You guys are doing a wonderful job, and thank you. And it is nice to know that there are so much support out there. That gives us
always
then more inspiration.
Mhm.
Yes, and definitely, Mazan, you can be humble, but there's a saying in the South that my mother and grandmother always says, a closed mouth does not get fed. So if you don't open up your mouth and ask, you don't know if someone will actually say yes or no. And it is wonderful to be humble, but you're not in this alone. And I'll just be honest, I'm very transparent. I came to the Port of Seattle last year, so I just celebrated a 1-year anniversary via COVID. Yes, so under my first 6 months, I was in the office, and 2 weeks, well, yeah, about 2-3 weeks before my 6-month anniversary, COVID hit. So I have not had the interaction of really being in the office with my peers, but I specifically kept asking my director how we work with Lily. And I kept asking, trying to figure it out. How can we work with Lily? And COVID opened it up even more. He was like, yes, figure out a way. We're going to make it happen, COVID or not. So I have begged literally for this type of workshop, COVID or not. I'm glad it's happening. So take the opportunity, all the resources, and utilize it. So my begging won't be, and then at the same time, I can brag next year on my performance evaluation that it was a success. So
Thank you. And
absolutely.
Thank you. Very good point. And if you ask Marnie, she will tell that I am not very shy. Because she probably helps me every week with some research on
good
business. So
yeah, Mishan, I just want to let you know, so because of the partnership, and thank you, Tamika, you know, when Tanya introduced me to you, because you guys work together, I knew
Yes.
this is going to be, and it seems like COVID's bring us together. And then Tanya, and then because I haven't talked to Tanya for 5 years until she introduced you. I mean, we talk, but not like, you know.
Not every day.
Not every day,
Yeah.
but this is great. It brings us together. And because of this partnership, I am able to take some of the funding that it's supposed to be for this class, and you guys take care of the funding for the class, and I could provide the support service, that's when I'm able to pay for the consultant, membership,
Good.
marketing, and maybe website for this firm. Because, you know, just to be honest with you, sometimes small business going to the classes, that's not enough. They
Right.
need more. I mean, I understand people like, you know, if you want to be a small business, you have to be ready. But, you know, come on. That's why we are here. And then, you know, when Casey and Mizan and then Gina, Allen, and Frick become successful, then you won't forget to give back to the other small business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's, you know, because like that's exactly like Tanya Jamal. She was successful. I worked with her for 12 years. And she gave back. She said, Lily, anything you want for classes, anything you want for personal session with your firms, I'll do it for free. So I'm hoping that Casey and other group gonna do that. You know, when you're successful, then you do that the same way to the other business, you know.
Just remember, yes, we're going to come knocking on your door saying that we need you to help the other small businesses. And you better not have a secure door and looking at us in the camera and saying, don't let them in. Because we're going to bring Tamika too.
Tanya and Lily, I want to say something to you guys. You know, I am from Bangladesh, okay?
Yeah.
After my graduation when I was 22-year-old, okay? And I did master's PhD here. So this country has been a blessing for me. You know, this country has given me so much, you know. And before starting my own business, you know, I was in very good job and I could retire from that job, well-paid job and everything. But I realized that, you know, how I can contribute more to the society, that the country that I, you know, done so much for me. That is one of the reasons that, you know, if I can mentor 5-10 engineers and give them a career, they can raise their family. Tanya was saying that, you know, if you are helping 5 people, you are helping 25 people. So that's the intention. I don't think that, you know, it's not about, you know, earning a lot of money. We are earning a lot of money anyway, you know, in our jobs and everything. So it's like from that sense, we are on the same, you know, thought process. We're on the same page that it is from number one to, you know, start a business and be successful. That, you know, that inspiration is there, but to give something back to the society that has done so much for us, at least for me.
Yep, thank you, Ms. Anto. Any other final comments before we all leave? No, thank you so much, everybody, for being with us today. Thank you for trusting us enough to serve you, and let us know what we can do to help.